Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. Everything is different in the room, the setup is different, the lighting is different, all because this video is totally random. I was actually getting ready to go to a birthday party, and while I was doing my makeup, I was watching a YouTube video talking about this topic, and I completely disagree with everything the person in the video said, and I said no, I've been wanting to make a video on this show, and so if I'm gonna make it, I have to make it now while all of these topics and all of these responses are fresh in my mind. I'm gonna be talking about the show Dear White People. I loved this show. It was amazing. I don't understand all the polemique that is coming from Americans about it, both Black Americans and white Americans. I don't think that Americans are very familiar with the term satire. The use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues. Dear White People was one giant piece of satire. There are so many people complaining about the name and they won't watch the show because of the name. You guys, the fact that there can be a show called Dear White People and not a show called Dear Black People is irony in itself. It's exposing how ridiculous the race relations in America are and how they don't make sense, essentially. In normal world, in everyday logic, it doesn't make sense, but in America it makes sense. And I'm pretty sure that the creators of the show did this on purpose, because if you watch the actual show, you'll realize that it has nothing to do with white people. It's all about Black people and how they see the world. White people are relegated to the secondary, minor characters. They're pretty stereotypes, which again, I believe is satire because it's showing in a really exaggerated way how minorities see themselves in everyday American media, how minorities are portrayed in every American movie. We're always the background characters, we're always the stereotype, we never have in-depth additional stories. We're just there to play a role in the white main character, the white superhero protagonist's life. That was the extent to there being white people in this show, and this show being about white people. It's about Black people, so let's get into what they say about Black people. The show pretty much talks about this group of African American students, Black students at an Ivy League school, and there is a race issue at their school. Somebody threw a blackface party, and then it talks about all the events like leading up to the blackface party and the reactions of everybody in the school after the blackface party, everything else that ensues, and it touches on a lot of issues within the Black community, like team light skin versus team dark skin, interracial dating, natural hair versus weave and perms. It talks about the different little enclaves within the Black community. Conservative Blacks, the upper middle class Blacks that think they're too good for everyone, whereas you also have the extremists, blacker than thou, just always want to yell to get their point across Black. And I love that they show that we as Black people in America are not monolith. We're not all the same. We all have so many different experiences, and I honestly saw a little bit of myself in every single one of these characters, which is not something I can normally say when I'm watching a movie or a TV show. There is this one character that ends up deciding to date a white guy, and one of the very first topics in this show is talking about how Black people react to interracial dating. In my opinion, the show didn't go far enough. It didn't show it well enough. It touched on the topic to show people that it exists, but I don't think they went in depth enough, because in the show what happens is this girl that talks so much about being pro-Black and she would never date outside of her race and they got to keep it in the race and she's got to date her own, ends up having a white boyfriend. And everybody's like shocked and surprised and mad at her at first, but of course they all forgive her in the end, which in real life doesn't really happen, you guys. I'm one of those girls that I am very, very pro-Black. I mean, this last summer, the day after the shootings in Texas at the protest, I went out to New Haven and I protested in Yale against the killing of unarmed Black men and police brutality against Black people. I am very pro-Black. I'm the first person to tell you this, and this about systematic racism in America. But all of that is negated by the fact that I have a white Italian boyfriend. I've been called a bedwench. I've been called a race traitor. I have been given so much grief by other Black people because I have a white boyfriend. I think they could have played up on that in the show a lot more, because although they touched on it and showed that this is a problem in the Black community, I don't think they went deep enough. I don't think they showed the true reality. Another issue that they touched upon was the colorism. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but I think it's pretty ironic that the main character is a light-skinned, racially ambiguous mixed girl, biracial girl, and as a character herself, she just seems very confused because on the one side she's saying one thing and then her actions are doing another thing, and there just isn't a lot of logic within her. The whole time it seems like she's trying to overcompensate for and prove her blackness, because when she first got there she was just trying to find her way, and even the pro-black group didn't really give a damn about her. But she spends her whole, like, the whole season, the whole show, trying to overcompensate for her blackness, and I don't know, everything about her is pretty problematic. But maybe they're showing that the conflicts that biracial people could have, because they're never considered black enough, they're never considered white enough, they're always kind of in the middle. And I don't know, as a character, I didn't love her, but that could just be the dark skin bitterness in me. I don't know. But I thought it was ironic that the light-skinned girl was the main character. She had a dark-skinned sidekick. The main protagonist, black boy, was in love with her, but of course she didn't love him. The dark-skinned sidekick loved the... I'm giving away too many things. I should put that there might be some spoilers in the title. The sidekick black friend is in love with the black protagonist, but he doesn't love her because he's in love with the light-skinned girl. And I just thought, ain't that reality? Ain't that reality that the dark-skinned girl always has to get played? That was great, ironic, and it showed something that is really a black reality. One character that I really identified with was Coco. Not so much. I'm not Coco 100%, but I was always like made to feel bad about myself because I was dark-skinned. I heard the same kind of thing Coco heard. There were guys that wanted to be with me, but they didn't want to be with me publicly. They didn't want to date me. They would say things like, yeah, but I don't know how my parents would react to me dating a black girl. Those were the kinds of things that I always heard. I don't want to say that I hated the fact that I was dark-skinned, but I didn't feel as valued as a girl that had lighter skin. And that's just what American society teaches you. Back in slave times, you would have that the slave masters would rape the black slaves all the time. And they would produce little offspring that were mulattoes, biracial children, and they would be a little bit lighter than the dark-skinned kids from two slaves. And what would happen is there would be a paper bag test where they would hold a paper bag up to your face, and if you were lighter than the paper bag, you would go work in the house and have, I guess, a nicer time in slavery. And if you were darker, you would get the back-breaking work in the field, and you were seen as less valuable than the lighter-skinned slave. And this mindset is still in America today. You have team light skin and team dark skin, and you'll have that even in TV shows, even in black TV shows, you'll notice that the black main character, the black main hero, always has a light skinned wife. And it's just always been portrayed that light-skinned women were more valuable than dark-skinned women, because of always hearing in American society, like you hear it in all the rap songs, they want a long-haired, thick red bone and yellow bone and light skin. Like, these are the attributes that are raised in American society. I would say that the face of beauty in America right now is racially ambiguous. Long, curly, or straight hair with light skin, maybe olive. Like, you shouldn't be able to place that she's white or black, and that's always been the way that I've felt due to American society and the message that American society and American media gives to you. So I saw myself a lot within Coco. Even the fact that there was this one scene where Coco and Sam, who's the main light skin protagonist, were fighting because of their hair. Of course, Sam's natural. She could be because, she has 3C hair. It's so much easier for her. Sam was like, yeah, but you're walking around with all of India's GDP on your head because, the weave and the hair that comes from India. And Coco was like, oh, please stop with that blacker than thou BS. Like, you're only wearing your hair like that because you want to prove some point and overcompensate. And it's so true. It's really like that. There really is this fight within the black community between girls that want to wear their hair natural and girls that want to play around with extensions. Every day I get told by other people that I wear extensions because I don't love myself. It doesn't matter how many reasons I give them for why wearing extensions are more convenient for me. It doesn't matter how many times I come on this channel with my real hair. I clearly hate myself, and that's the sole reason why I wear extensions. This is why I said in my video why I wear wigs. I don't see hair as a political statement. other people do. A lot of Italians were confused by that statement, and this is what they're talking about, because apparently if you wear wigs and you wear weaves, you're not black enough. Again, there's always this fight about not being black enough. They were at a party listening to this song, and the song had the N-word in the title, and they were all rapping and having fun, and then the white friend says the N-word like 3 times in front of the black friend, and after a while the black character is just like, you can't say that. And it shows the discussion that we're having in America right now, because on the one hand you have typically white people that are saying, well, you know, freedom of speech, it makes no sense that there's a song called my nigga, and I can't sing it and say my nigga if I like the song. And then the black people will say, well, no, but, you know, white people can't say that word because, you know, history, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has a different opinion on it. Personally, I think that the N-word is a bad word. The N-word has a negative connotation. Even if a black person called me a nigga, I wouldn't take that as a compliment. If I called another black person a nigga, I wouldn't be using it as a compliment. It's not a compliment. It's not a nice thing coming from anybody. And I think that it just creates confusion by saying, well, we can use it and you can't. It makes no sense. That is another thing that shows just how race obsessed and how much race is important in America. Like, your race defines the words that you can and can't say. And it makes no sense. If it's a bad word, it's a bad word and nobody should say it. If you have a song that says, my nigga, and your concerts are full and funded by little rich middle-class white kids, you can't get mad when those little rich white kids say the N-word because you taught them that way. There are a million words in the English language. There are so many beautiful words in this beautiful language, and you can't make a song without that one. Makes no sense to me. Personally, if a white person says the N-word, I don't really want to have anything to do with you. I do think that any white American today that would want to freely use that word, it does say something about them, and I wouldn't want to be friends with them. But I'm not going to say there should be a law that says white people can't say the N-word. You can say whatever you want, and there's freedom of speech, but you also know that there are consequences with what you say. And the consequence is that I'm going to look at you a certain way. I also look at black people a certain way when they say the N-word, and I have this conversation with my black friends who love to abuse the N-word. I think that there are a million other words in the dictionary. I think it's stupid that you have to say that word so much, and if you want to say that word, you really have no excuse when other people say it. Like, it makes no sense that one race can say a word and another race cannot say a word. And I don't want people to like talk about the whole reclaiming shit. I don't want people to compare it to like gay and bitch, because it's not the same. They're not the same. The black experience is not the same as the gay experience, which is not the same as the female experience. I can actually say from living in other countries that in some countries, being black is harder than being female. And I can say in another country that being female kind of holds me back a little bit more than being black. These experiences are not the same. People are always screaming for intersectionality. So let's acknowledge the fact that being gay and being black and being a female are not the same experiences. So just because gay people might be okay calling each other faggots, and just because certain women, I don't know who, are okay calling each other bitches, doesn't mean that black people should be okay with calling each other the N-word. Am I wrong here? Am I wrong? The police brutality, I noticed in the video that I watched today that I really disagreed with. The girl like pretty much chalked that scene up to racism, and the police were reacting to the black guy in that manner because of racism. But I think that they really missed the point that racism and institutional racism are two different things. What you'll see in Italy, the occasional, black, I negri hanno il ritmo nel sangue, like those occasional like slick comments are racist. But it's different in America. And this kind of institutional racism only exists in the countries that had race-based societies and are trying to compensate for that and trying to fix that. In Italy, there was never a race-based society. The color of your skin isn't going to affect your access to healthcare. It's not going to affect your access to education. It's not going to affect where you live, how you speak, none of that. Whereas in America, it does. I have Afro-Italian friends. I have Italian friends from all over the globe. And to be honest, they all exhibit those pretty same Italian, those are pretty much the same Italian characteristics. And even outwardly, they tend to see the world in an Italian view. Whereas if you talk to an American, if you talk to a Black American and a white American and a Latino American, they're going to have different worldviews. As a Black American sees the world from a different perspective as a white American, and that's because of the systematic racism that we have. In America, police brutality is one thing, but when you add the fact that you're Black into it, there have been studies that show that Black people are more likely to get a certain judgment because they're Black. In America, we have jury cases where your fate, if you commit a crime, is decided by a jury, and juries are usually 12 random people that, well, they're supposed to be random, and they're supposed to be your peers, and people judge Black and white criminals differently. You'll see if you look at, we have capital punishment, for example, and you'll see if you look at the inmates and you see the cases and you see the crimes that they committed, it's like a Black person can be put on death row for robbing a store, whereas a white guy has to rape his entire family, set the village on fire, and then eat their charred remains before he's put on death row. Like, there's a huge disparity. If you look at income, like, the white Americans have an average household income of a certain number. I think it's like $50,000 a year, whereas Black Americans have a median income of like $20,000 a year. These disparities are because of a race-based society. There was a time in America where Black people weren't allowed to buy houses in certain places. Black people weren't allowed to do things, and this was about 50 years ago. 50 years ago in historical times is like yesterday. We have these issues that you don't see in other countries. You might get these things in like Canada, maybe. Very prevalent in South America, South Africa, maybe even Australia, because they had these systems based on race. But you're not going to find that in a place like Italy, where the race issues started like 20, 30 years ago. Up until 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't really immigration into Italy. Everybody was like leaving Italy. So it's completely different. I want Italians to watch this show and recognize how deep racism goes into America, and that it's not just racism, but it's a systematic, institutionalized thing. In America, your race is on your birth certificate. On your birth certificate, it says that you are Black. Up until a certain time, it said that you were Negro. Okay? When you apply to college, when you do any type of standardized testing, when you apply to a job, you have to write your race. That is America. There are still racial laws in America. I think it was 2005 that the last law that said white people and Black people couldn't be married was overturned and taken off the books in Georgia, and I want to say 2005. So up until 2005, even if people weren't enforcing the law, even if law enforcement wasn't enforcing the law, it was still illegal in Georgia for Black people and white people to get married. Another racist law is affirmative action. Careful, I know, my Black people are going to attack me for this now. We have an affirmative action that says, for example, if you have two people that are applying for a school, one's Black, one's white, and they have the same grades, you take the Black one because the Black one had a harder life. Now, when this law came into force, it was starting the civil rights movement, where you could argue that Black people had harder lives than white Americans. Black Americans had harder lives than white Americans. And if they had the same grades, if that Black person could overcome all of that and perform the same as a white American, then they should be let into the college and not the white American. The point of this was to force colleges, essentially, to accept more Black students. In my opinion, this law didn't work. If you look at the actual makeup of colleges, especially Ivy League colleges, if this law did what it was supposed to do, there would be the same percentage of Black people in Ivy League colleges that there are in American society. And there aren't. So the law didn't work. I don't think this law makes sense anymore because America has come a long way, and just because you're Black. Okay guys, I'm having some technical difficulties. My camera card is full and the bigger memory card broke the other day, but I just wanted to say that just because you're Black in America these days doesn't necessarily mean you had a harder life. There is a nice Black middle class. There are rich Blacks. Last part of this affirmative action thing that I hate is a story that I tell all the time on my channel, and it's the fact that when you're a Black person like me, when you're one of those Black kids that bust their asses and ends up getting into one of those Ivy League schools, you're gonna have all your little white friends saying, not even friends, classmates, classmates saying, yeah, but you only got in because you're black. You only got in because of affirmative action, or at least that's what happened to me. Nobody will ever take your accomplishments seriously so long as there's a law that says, oh, black person, white person, pick the black person. I think that they should rewrite affirmative action to say poor person. If you have two people and one of them is poorer, then take the poorer one, because that makes more sense. Usually poor people tend to have harder lives than rich people, especially in the United States of America. And then nobody can say that that law is racist because you took race out of the equation. It'll probably still benefit black people for reasons that I've said before, but it's no longer racist. That's just my idea, my thoughts on the thing. This is a way longer video than I thought it would be, but I just had so much to say, and I think there's so much misconceptions about racism, and the people just don't understand how race really works in America, especially foreigners, like foreigners in Italy. Like I said, the girl that made the video, I think she totally missed the point. She had a really superficial take on it, and I don't want you guys to have a superficial take on the show either. Like, I want you to go back, watch the show now after watching this, and recognize all these mechanisms that I'm telling you so that you can really understand and get a really good look at American society, because I think that show was a really harsh and brutal satire commentary. It showed a very realistic, like, I have to say that it's pretty much like that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Can't believe I'm ending this video on my iPhone, but I had to get this out there. I had to say this. I hope you guys like this video. Go watch Dear White People, and I'll see you guys in my next one.